So on this call, we have Drew over at Calgary Home Sale in Alberta, Canada.
Yep.
And I believe that you guys have been with us now for almost 60 days. What are some of your thoughts around working with MSA, and what has stood out positively about our program and our system?
Well, positively first, it's good to feel like I've got somebody on the team with me, in essence, and that it's not just hey, I promised you I'm going to get you something, and then we don't hear from that person again after the fact, right?
Right.
I know anytime I have any concerns, and I've had quite a bit, obviously, with me being
Yeah.
in the region that I'm at in Calgary, and just how things are a little bit different in Canada as opposed to the US.
Yep.
Nestor's been really good on responding to those things in the Slack channel, and to me personally, and that sort of stuff. So that's been really reassuring. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we still need to work on, obviously, but it's good to know that we're both aligned. In essence, myself and Major Scale in actually getting that achievement actually happening slowly but surely, but it's definitely coming. So
Yep. Thank you for all of that. And I definitely agree with you. When you first came on board, I remember you telling us about how Canada is so much different from the United States. And I have to be honest with you, at first I didn't really grasp it until we started seeing the leads coming in. And most people there are, like you said, they're not really dealing with ugly houses. Most of them are just dealing with financial distress. So it's definitely a shift compared to America, where it's mostly just messed up houses.
right. Right. Yeah. So I mean, I'll say this as well too, if there's any other Canadians who have seen this, right? I've tried quite a bunch of different ad agencies, and yeah, and I knew it when I spoke to Nestor. I mean, we've been talking for a while. Everyone's like, oh yeah, we can get the business, we can get this done. I'm like, hey man,
It's been a while.
yeah. But in essence, a lot of it is simple in that it's lead generation. It's somebody who wants to get their home sold. You're appealing to the same thing, but just there's some subtle differences here in Canada that we just have to take into account, that I've obviously have seen over the years. And that's why I said, for me, it's important when somebody has to get it and understand when I go, hey, this isn't necessarily working, as opposed to just, saying, no, we'll just keep throwing stuff at this. This works for everything that we've been doing, kind of thing. So
definitely, that's one thing that we pride ourselves in. We don't just want to force something that's not going to work to work. Let's talk about the deal, man. I know you got a deal recently.
yeah,
You've been killing it. You've been on the phones. I see the conversations, and these people seem to be very easygoing compared to Americans. A lot of Americans will tell you to go F off. But can you go into detail about some of these contracts and deals that are in the pipeline?
sure. Well, again, on top of it being me being in Canada, secondarily, I'm a licensed realtor as well. So there's other things that we have to take into account with that, where what I can advertise, I have to have the brokerage's blessing on that sort of stuff. So all of these little subtleties that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think it was one of just my earlier mentors that told me, it's like it's more about attracting the right person with the right messaging, and then being able to deliver on what your messaging is. So not trying to bait and switch, right? So if we say we're buying houses, legitimately, I buy houses as much as I am, in essence, wholesaling as well.
Right. Yep.
Right. I stated in my my video ad that we're running, it says, hey, I'll buy the house, but we have a list of buyers as well. Now I can say that because I'm a licensed broker. So if licensed agent, sorry. But if you're not, then obviously, I mean, if you're just wholesaling it, you have to say what it is that you're doing. Hey, we will get we'll buy your house, or we'll put it under contract, or whatever you have to figure out there for yourself.
Yes.
So in essence, I feel very comfortable when I get on the phone, because any question or comment that somebody may have, I don't have to look for hey, let me figure out what I can tell them to make them believe me. I just go, hey, this is what we do, right? Our disclaimers on the website, the disclaimers on the page. The AI has been able to respond I respond, you respond in kind. So it's just, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
right. And the other thing on top of it too is I say, yeah, we can get you an offer on your house. 100% we can get you an offer on your house. But this isn't, but you have to find out if your house qualifies for an offer that makes sense for us as well too. So I make them feel like it has to be a two-way street, right? That was a big one for me, was like, well, if you qualify, we can get you a cash offer that's, as close to market if it's the right property,
Mhm.
and then clearly define what type of properties that it is that we want. Right.
Right.
So if I know what myself and my investors, if I know what they want, then somebody comes, like we have the gentleman who probably came to us a couple of times saying he wanted $1 million house in excellent
Yeah.
condition, right? And I told Nestor, I was like, it's slightly outside of even what we consider market value. Plus, it's $1 million property. Plus, it's not run down. So he's just disqualified himself. So he can send us all the time. You just like, sorry, this one doesn't qualify for a cash offer. That's
Yeah. We just can't
and
help.
yeah, I don't have to argue with him about it. I just go, it doesn't qualify. Thanks for your time. And then secondarily, what I try to do is anybody who responds to us, I take the mindset of how can I help them, right? They've taken the time. We're in the business of buying and selling homes. They have a property, right?
Yeah.
So if I go first and foremost, not what's in it for me, but if I go first and foremost, how can I help this person? So if the guy, like I said, even if he says my house is worth $1 million, and I go, well, I got the tools here to tell me that it's actually worth 875 to 950, then I just take the 5 minutes and I go, hey, in our opinion, based on the tools that we have, here's what it is. You don't have to. There's no obligation to taking it, but in my mind, I've at least given you that some level of service as opposed to me trying to be combative about it. So I come from
I
it from a
agree.
factual perspective.
I agree. And I think that's one thing that I've noticed about you. And it may be due to the fact that you have a radio background.
Mm,
I don't know, but I'm assuming that your background helps with actually relating to folks and actually trying to understand them based off of the conversations I've heard from you
okay.
and these leads. And I've noticed that you tend to connect with them and actually serve them versus just 5 minute call, like, hey, we can't help you, sorry, hang up. You actually
No.
talk to them, you give them options, you paint the picture, and you bring them back to reality. Because a lot of people, they all want the top dollar for their home, even if it's not worth that.
Right.
So I've noticed you're really, really, really good at having that conversation and not dismissing them and just letting them know we can't help you right now, but you can come to us, and this is how we can help you if you do decide that this is the best option for you.
Right. And I'll put this out to any other wholesalers as well too. So let's say 95% of the leads that are going to come in are not going to work for you if you're not a licensed agent as well. Right. But that
Interesting.
doesn't stop you from becoming a potential lead source to a licensed agent. So, I mean, at the same time, you're having conversations with sellers. Guess what other realtors in your area want? Listings, right? So
Yep.
if you know exactly what you figure out what your buy box is, right? Or you figure out what your investor buyer's buy box is, then you can have that conversation. And then when somebody comes in and says, hey, I actually got an acreage, 45 minutes outside of my area or whatever, you go, okay, well, I'm getting a bunch of those leads. Maybe I should call realtors and go, hey, guess what? I'm actually doing some marketing. My company actually does X, Y, and Z. And every so often, it seems like I'm getting a lead or two that comes up from here. If I get something like that, is that something you're willing to pay a referral for or something like that? And not everyone's going to say yes, but that's the game we're in, right? So consider everyone who's reached out to you to be somebody who's a seller, right? They
Yeah.
have a property,
Yeah.
right? Now, it might not work for what you're doing, but you can now serve somebody else. So if you, as I said, as my mentor told me, was like, just get in the mindset of serving somebody else. And if you can help somebody else get what they want, you can make a fairly good living. So
Definitely. That's great advice. And it sounds a lot like, people over profit at the end of the day. It's like,
mm,
how can I help this person? How can I be of service, even if it's just a word of advice?
yep. Yeah. And I mean, even I say people over profit carefully, because you're still running a business. right? So
Yeah.
you have to make sure you're checking. So you don't go, okay, well, I'm going to do this for this person and I'm not going to make the money. You're going to say, if I can help this person and it fits my business as well, because I consider my business an entity that I serve as well, then that's how I married it too, right? So
Yeah.
exactly like with this deal, it was, which we'll get
Let's talk
to.
about that deal. Since
Okay.
we were just talking about profits, what's going on with that deal? If you don't mind, going into detail about it. I know they came in. It was a pretty
Yeah.
it was a pretty house. It was in I think almost excellent shape, but they were just
Mm,
dealing with some issues at home, right?
yeah. Without, no, I had to put them on the contract. That this is the realtor talk now. But it ended up, you'll see when I go through how it ended up being wholesaling. So I'll be careful in what I talk about, just because of, typically I want to keep the confidentiality when I deal with a client.
Yeah, no
But
names. Go ahead. Go
all
ahead.
good. So they have a house in just outside the city,
Okay.
and 2,200 square foot, 2-story, double attached garage, fairly nice property. They had pets in the house, and the pets, had done their business on like the carpet and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
the carpets, when I get there, the carpets have been pulled up, so it's just subfloor, and lots of stuff in the house. I guess there was some issue with a couple of the growing kids who, one or two had to move back in, and then one of the couple's parents had passed away. So you get there and the entire basement is stored with
Wow.
just, yeah, like clutter. Like as the wife said, it was three families worth of stuff in one house. Okay.
Wow.
They were behind on some tax payments as well, and life had just gotten to them. I didn't get into too much more than that. So
Mhm.
first and foremost, I looked and I said, okay, well, based on this, if we clear this house out, it potentially could sell for this amount, right? They said, well, we're adamant. We don't want, as much as you're a realtor, we don't want a sign on the lawn. We do not want a list. I said, okay. So then I have a spreadsheet that I calculate what market value would be, how much investor capital would be, how much it would make sense for me to put it on the contract. And
Okay.
unlike probably a lot of people, I actually go in with it. Right, so I tell them about our services first, and then I go in with the sheet, and I go, hey, I'm just going to put all my cards on the table. I say, I'm here to potentially help you. Right, this is a business. This is the risk in essence I'm taking. These properties, that one is like upwards of $500,000. Right, so I in essence now have to find upwards of $500,000 or an investor with upwards of $500,000 to buy this property, take on the problem, probably to get rid of the junk, and do this privately. So I just put that out there, and they go, hey, that's what you're asking me to do, so be aware. Right, so it comes in and it says there's a price that you should buy this property at. I said, if you list this property and you clean it up yourself, and I look around and I go, okay, you're going to have to junk, do this, that, and the other. And I have a separate spreadsheet. I say, if you do this yourself and you list it, whether with me or any other agent, that's how much money you'll make.
Right.
Okay. And now that I've put that on the table, I asked them, I go, how bad is it that you need to, is your privacy important to you? And the wife said, yep,
Wow.
there's nowhere we're putting a sign on the lawn. So I took the other sheet off the table.
Yep.
So I told her, I said, okay, you've told me this is not going to work. I said, well, that's the price that I would buy it from you at today. And she said, no, that's not going to work. So I said, okay, well, then I have to do what is a bit of a hybrid. I said, I'm going to have to put on my realtor hat. Okay, you're going to sign a piece of paper with me that says I'm going to broker this out to other investors. Right. So this is where now I say, if you're a wholesaler, you say, hey, I'm going to take this contract. I'm going to attempt to put this out, but I'm going to put what do you call it? Conditions in here saying that
Yeah.
I have to get approval from my other investor partners. That's the verbiage you would use if you're unlicensed. Okay. I said, are you guys fine with that? They said, yes. I told them straight to their face. Okay. I said, okay, give me a little bit. So I get back now, I call my network, which is another realtor. Okay. And then he has another group of people that he put it out to. Now, because of where this was outside the city, it was an even smaller group of people who would buy it. And then, so get ready for this. It's a third realtor now. So in essence, considers a third wholesaler who has a final buyer. So I come back to them now and I go, I got someone who might be interested in the property with two people. I said, here's unfortunately what's going to have to happen. I'm going to broker it for you, but it's going to have to go through 2 other agents for this buyer to close on the deal. And again, I just brought the sheet and I said, this is the fee to use my brokerage. This is the fee that goes to that person. This is the fee that goes to this person, right? It ended up being $28,000 in fees on top of. I said, but after all, and she looked me in the face and said, and what do we get? And I said, minus this, minus that. I said, here's the lawyer. I can even have a lawyer who would come out to you and get the paperwork done. So again, Canada's a little bit different. We don't have title companies. You use real estate lawyers.
Okay.
So they were well aware of the 28 in fees. They had to sign off on it because I have to do that as a licensed agent, and I have to disclose any monies I make if I act as a licensed agent. And then, yeah, the person came in. They had conditions to have, I think it was 72 hours. They wanted they had already been pre-approved because again, they were buying the property to renovate and live in it.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, they had an inspection just to make sure that past all of the junk that was in there, the mechanical was fine.
Yeah.
So sure enough, 72 hours later, I got a condition removal from the third agent on behalf of their client. All documentation was signed. And then that goes back to my brokerage. In essence, if you're a wholesaler, it'd be the title company, and then you get paid, right? But the important thing there was I told them exactly what I was doing up front. I told them the options that they had, whether they use me or not. I only would move forward if you're comfortable with it. Because in this game, like, we're doing online leads.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm already on my social media. I'm already on wherever I found you. So if you see my face or you see this link or you see whatever, the next step is just open another tab and go, who is this clown? Right? And if the next window that opens up is this guy is a scam artist,
right, then you're out of luck.
Yeah, you're making your agency work way too hard because they're sending you leads that you'll never close or they won't even fill it out.
And your brand is on point everywhere. I've seen you on YouTube. I've seen you on social media. There's a lot of information on there. So I the most sophisticated seller is going to go and do their due diligence and research you.
Yeah.
And if they find anything that seems off, then obviously they're not going to want to work with you. And I think you do a really good job at being transparent and educating your prospects. And how important would you say that is in this game of real estate, not just wholesaling and investing, but just real estate in general? Because it sounds like you have the transparency locked in, you have the network, and you're also a problem solver. You're just not like, hey, all I can do is wholesale. You have different avenues and different levers that you can pull depending on the situation that you're dealing with. So how important is it for somebody to become well-rounded and not just a master of one in this industry?
Actually, I might disagree with you there. I would say master your thing.
Okay.
But be aware of what it is that you're going to be the absolute best that you are, right? Because, okay, so I'll tell you and give you an example. So I live in a city of 1.3 million people. Okay, right now, unlike probably anywhere else in the country and probably some places in the US, because of oil and gas prices and the median house price in my city, we're the hottest ticket right now. Like, it's less than 20 days, you list a property and go on. There's 8,000 licensed realtors in this city.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not on a bus bench. I'm not on a billboard, right? I tell everybody I'm the secret agent. You literally have to go into the belly of the internet to find me.
Yeah.
Right? But that's it. So from that, you're going, okay, how can I differentiate myself? So rather than me trying to do everything, I was like, okay, I'm going to help the people who have these 7 homes, these 7 types of homes, all right, or in this similar situations, or who are, in distress, have a distressed house, prefer a private sale, or have an older home that needs repair, or a home that can be held as a cash flowing rental. That's my anything outside of that window now, I just put blinkers on. But what I immediately do is I go, okay, not that these people don't exist. I try to not market for them, and if they do come in, then I just pass them to somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I said it's the problem solving is find the problem and then point them in the direction of the solution, right? And just try to fill your bucket with as many people as possible who fit your one. So that when they look everywhere and they're like, yeah, well, I have a really good friend who happens to be a realtor and this, and they want to tell me that I have to clean this up and it'll be on the market for 30 days. I come in, I go, nope, we have a history of closing properties within 7 days. We can do this privately for you. Right? I've separated myself already from
the rest. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
And I guess this ties back to the rest of the folks out there. What would you tell somebody who's listening to this interview and listening to your experience and expertise about, and who they might, like, let's say they're unsure about working with us as an agency? What would you tell them if they're doubting, taking the leap?
There's always going to be work that's necessary, but realistically, as you hear me alluding to, like there's a power in focus. So knowing that you have somebody whose focus is lead generation for you, qualified lead generation for you, and screening the leads, right? On top of that. So there's AI, then there's Nestor himself and the rest of the team. So if the AI is tripping up, you'll see Nestor jump in and say whatever, if I don't get to it at some point as well too, right? So that Nestor's not telling you, I'm going to tell you how to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm just focused on your lead generation and qualifying those leads for you. And then that frees you up to simply be a closer, right? And there's a huge power to doing that. So if you're just starting out, any training that you think on wholesaling or real estate or anything is going to tell you that, where that it's going to be lead generation and closing the sales, and then all the other stuff, it becomes superfluous. You'll have to build it after a while, but it's a good place to start. And I've tried a few, and most are just the lead generation. And then you have to, in essence, have your website or whatever situation it is, do some of the screening for you, which is possible, right? But again, it's good to know that AI is integrated, and then there's an actual team member that's there to actually reach out and do the calls. Because I don't like cold calling, right? I don't
think anybody does.
No, but there are people who can be very good at it if you just focus, right? So in essence, now and as you said, why I don't ever pick up the phone expecting to get hung up on or yelled at, right? Because this person has gone through already 2 or 3 sequences to say, I've seen an ad, I filled out my information, please contact me. This is my real name, my real phone number, my home address, or property that I'm responsible for selling.
Yeah, it's built trust.
Yeah, so they're expecting a call. So my duty to them now is simply to just be professional and follow up and find out what their problem is, right? Secondly, I'd say is be very clear if you're taking on major scale, that you know what your buy box is, right? Because then it allows the major scale team to work with you to craft the ad, to find out which region is going to work for you, what type of properties are going to work for you, etc. So that you can now, when the lead comes in, right? If I walk into Walmart and I'm like, hey, can I get a Big Mac and fries? Some of them here in Canada have a McDonald's. I don't know if they do in
yeah, they do. They do.
Right, but if I walked into a Walmart, right, so you'd be like, okay, that's interesting, right? But if somebody said, okay, well, I'd like a Mercedes Benz if I walk into a Walmart, right? Some people will take the mindset of, well, we don't sell Mercedes Benz here, but you can, just by doing this, by going, okay, actually, we don't sell Mercedes Benz here, but if you go out and to the left and drive 10 minutes, the dealership's that way. Just a simple help. Just a simple help.
Yep, I agree. I agree with everything. And I'm happy that you're happy with our service, our attention to detail, and of course our communication. We want to make sure that we're covering everything that will bring you the best results and the best experience. And I'm happy that you're I'm happy that you're willing to go through the process of refinement, because a lot of times a lot of agencies, they just go in, like I said, they try to do whatever they think works based off of what they've seen work before, but then they ignore what will work for you.
Right.
And that's, in the beginning, I know that we had that conversation like, hey man, this right here, this phrasing really doesn't work. This area really isn't for me. So we went in and we cracked it to the point where the volume, we had a lot of volume in the beginning. It was a bunch of just leads, but not all of them were quality. And then we kind of sculpted it down to the right persons, the right sellers that we want to have conversations with. And I think you're a big part of that. It's the collaboration, the communication, and then constant refinements.
Yeah. So whoever's listening, don't be a pest. Right. Again, you're still dealing with a partner there. But when something's not working, be clear about it, and then also make sure you take accountability too. Right. Like, is it not working because of something you haven't done, or are you not being clear? Because again, if you're using the CRM, your calls are going to be recorded. Listen to yourself if at the end of it, and make sure that would I trust this person who just answered this call, or did I respond to what our ad is in a manner where I was trying to help that person first, as opposed to saying, hey, thank goodness you fell into my fish trap, so time to eat.
Right. I like that. Accountability, it goes a long way. It definitely does.
But
Awesome.
but again, having the agency, it makes it super easy for you, right? You're gonna have a lead that comes in, and there's gonna be an appointment that's set. Be early at your appointment. Give them a call, and just know, well, do your due diligence before. Right? Like typically, you guys are setting them up for me, like what, like within a few hours to a day after, or something like that.
We try to aim for the same day, simply
Yeah.
because we understand that these are online leads, and you shouldn't be gullible to think that you're the only person they're talking to.
Correct.
You're dating multiple people, but only one person gets them to the finish line. You got to get to them fast, have to talk to them, have to make them feel heard. And that's really what gets you to the finish line of closing a deal. So yes, it's super important to just get a hold of them, get them on the phone. And if we can talk to them and if we can transfer them over to you in that very, very moment, then perfect. If not, I think you experienced that with the lead. They booked out all the way up till Friday, and then they were reaching out to you like, hey, just call me. So yes, there's people that need help. And the quicker you can get to them, the quicker they'll marry you versus the other person that's pursuing them as well.
That's right. So yeah, on that one, we're still trying to figure out something with her. That's a land deal that might go to a developer. So I punched that one out, but again, I don't have an answer for her. And then we have another one that we're working on where it was actually a contractor, but he just wanted to get a deal done on his dad's property. A little bit more complicated. There were 5 people on title, so they needed a little bit more expertise on that one. But that's where, again, being focused on going, I can help on this situation, made it work. So we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Are there any final words before we end?
No, like I said, I appreciate knowing that I got the ability to have somebody in a team mindset who's focused on what it is that they say they're going to be doing, and is willing to make these pivots to make sure that the lead flow is quality leads. Like I said, it's not necessarily always about quantity, unless that's what you're looking for, and you're just passing it out all over. Like some people are national wholesalers, but I've given Nestor the opportunity, the challenge, I should say, to work on my one city, working with a realtor in Canada who wants to do off-market properties to purchase himself and pass off to investors. So
Yes, yes.
That took a little bit of a learning curve, but we're working on it.
We are, and we're gonna perfect it. Awesome, Drew.
Cool.
Well, this concludes our call. This is Drew from Calgary Home Sale over in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, check me out online. Why not?